This is Mike and Ham from Please Pause. Meron kaming munting podcast where we talk about all things TV and film. And despite that, surprisingly, we are still married.
Control freak ka kasi sa podcast na to.
30 seconds lang po ang meron tayo. Pakibilisan.
From blockbusters to classics, superheroes to love teams, hit series to teleseries, join us as we have meaningful and meaningless conversations on the stuff we watched. Someday, mababago ka rin ang tagline na yan.
Check out Please Pause on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms.
See you there!
For more local podcasts, check out more shows from Pilipinas Indie Podcast and Entertainment Network.
Hype Network presents.
Welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. This is the LTG Show Podcast.
So, welcome to your Unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. And this is the MTG Show Podcast, a wrestling podcast. Teka. Ito actually, ang hirap kasi magayos. Tangin. sobrang quick nitong pangyayari na to. So, I had to do this here. Sa aking backup stuff. So, are you ready for fun? Because today, this Sunday Manila time is the start of the road to WrestleMania. And it's Royal Rumble season. Wow. Ang bilis ng araw. And fun fact, ito yung first predictions episode ko ngayong taong 2022. Since hindi nga ako gumawa ng day 1 and hindi rin ako gumawa ng Hard to Kill, sadly, tsaka yung Wrestle Kingdom. Sorry about that. So, ito yung magiging first predictions episode ko ng podcast. So, it's gonna be short, not too long, kasi medyo baka magkulang yung oras na nag-alat kasi ako ng oras for this episode na dapat mga 45-50 minutes. Pero titingnan pa din natin sa buong duration itong episode na to ngayong linggong ito. So, ngayong linggo, syempre, hindi pa din mawawala yung mga usual stuff natin. So, we're going to do a review Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, plus my predictions for this year's Royal Rumble pay-per-view. And hindi lang Royal Rumble. We're not going to talk about Royal Rumble lang. We're going to talk about everything what's going on today rather. And yung aking malaking preview for this year's Royal Rumble, siguro gagawin ko siyang ATD episode. Lagi na ako na-i-stuck sa ATD episode na yan. Sige, we're going to do an ATD tonight. We're going to do a preview of this year's Royal Rumble on today's ATD episode. Attention to detail episode. Sige. Okay. Let's start. Umpisa tayo sa SmackDown since SmackDown yung isa sa mga medyo prominent pero masasabi ko na kahit hindi ko napanoorin ng buo kasi ito yung sa tingin ko na okay, I can say na pwede ko hindi panoorin to lahat pero papanoorin ko na lang sa YouTube siguro clips or yung mga stuff na gusto kong panoorin lang. Ganun lang yung nasasabi ko or yung feeling ko about today's or this week's SmackDown. So that's why I kind of disappointed on the fact na bakit ganito yung setup ng SmackDown this week. But I kind of like it kasi meron tayong important moments, especially the opening stuff between Owens, Seth Rollins, and then Roman Reigns and the Usos. It's kinda interesting yung promo doon ni Roman na nagbanta pa siya na if matatalo sila Rollins today on that episode of SmackDown, hindi na siya makapag-challenge sa Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view or premium live event. Ay, putang ina. Sabi ko naman sa inyo, huwag yung papapanggit sa akin yung lintik na pay-per-view na yan eh. Dito sa WWE. Sige, let's continue. So, alam mo yung feeling na hindi ako ganong na-impress sa pag-build nila ng pay-per-view na to ngayong taon. But at the same time, I kinda like the Universal and the WWE Championship builds. It's fine. Sakto lang sa akin. 3 match, syempre, Bobby Lashley. Si Reigns, may history kay Rollins. Kaya, hindi natin pwedeng baliwalain yung 2 matches na yun. The rest, parang pwede mo na siyang baliwalain. Pero, di mo masasabi na pwede mo talagang baliwalain. Diba? So, sige. Let's talk about the match itself on that main event episode of SmackDown. The match is okay. Okay lang. Saktuan lang sa akin. It's not that bad. Not that lame. Nag-expect na ako na mananalo sila Rollins by DQ kasi natake nga ni Roman. And it's kind of stupid kasi kasi ganun nga yung nangyari result of that match. And hindi ko rin masisisi si Roman na he wants to protect his shit. But at the same time, he ruined everything from that match. Kaya sobrang natatawa ako. At the same time, it's kinda makes sense para protected pa din ng Usos from beating, diba? Pero at the same time, feel ko din naman na this year, pag natalo to si Rollins tsaka si Kevin Owens, and I hope na matalo nga kasi I want to see them with championships, tag team titles, not the Universal, definitely not the world titles. I want to see Seth and KO holding up the tag team titles ng Usos o Alpha Academy, whatever it is, kung naman Brad nila ngayon. Di ko na kasi alam kasi wala naman silang sinasabing pre-bird rule, di naman nila sinasabi na andito lang kami kasi Royal Rumble. Hindi nila ini-indicate na ganun kasi kaya siya bullshit for me. Nadidismaya ako on that stuff. Okay, so next, let's talk about Naomi versus Charlotte Flair with Sonya Deville as the special Kuno referee. Man. Can I say something about few seconds? Kailan ba matatapos to? Kailan ba matatapos tong feud? Kasi mukhang we're going to get a WrestleMania match between the two. If ibibitin nito if bibitinin tong Naomi versus Sonya sa SmackDown, we might get another match at WrestleMania, which is kinda bullshit. Ewan ko, parang BS na dating sa akin itong feud na to at this point. Na parang naisip ko na lang na please, tama na, putang ina. Hindi na ako natutuwa sa feud na to. Sobrang basura na itong feud. And gave Naomi what she deserves. Bigyan nyo naman ng matino-tinong story. Ilagay nyo sa bloodline, no problem. Lagay nyo sa ibang story, no problem. Lagay nyo kay Nia Lee, fine. Tapusin nyo na itong kay Sonya. Sonya is authority figure, not a active wrestler. But if ito yung way niya to para mag-return siya in active, then get the fuck out of the WWE official role. Give it to Adam Pearce. O wag na kayo maglagay ng ganyan-ganyan. Instead, maglagay kayo ng matinong GM. Don't put that motherfucking Pearce on that role. Because Adam Pearce right now is absolutely the worst GM that I've seen in a while. Sobrang pangit kasi. Sorry. And then, sige, let's talk about the... Ano pa ba? Charlotte winning the match. It's fine for me. Wala na akong paki. Parang, okay. Charlotte always wins. It's kinda expected for me. Okay, sige. Let's move on to Raw. So, yung Raw, opposite siya ng SmackDown ngayon. Alright? Sobrang opposite niya. Yung opening segment, that's a weigh-in. between Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship match at the Royal Rumble Premium Live event. And tanongin niyo ako kung ano masasabi ko. Kasi sobrang, alam mo yun, sobrang naiinis ako on the fact na weigh-in to, wala naman silang weight class para gawin to mga bullshit na to. Wala rin silang, di rin sila nagtatanggal ito. Parang, tumitimbang lang sila. For fuck's sake. Parang ginagawa lang nilang tangang tao. Diba? Ganun lang yun eh. Parang nakasapatos pa si Brock, nakadamit pa si Brock at all. And then, the announcers, sino nga ba to? Si Kevin Patrick, sinabi niya, si Corey Graves, kung naman pangalan ng putang inang yun, basta. Feeling ko it's Corey Graves na. Si Corey Graves, sinabi niya, si Lashley 273, si Brock ay 286. Partida, walang tanggalan yun, ha? Alam mo yun, naiinis ako sa mga ganyang weigh-in na yan, o kaya mga contract signing na wala namang kabuluhan, pero nilalagay pa din nila. And yung mga stuff na, halimbawa, ito, weigh-in, wala man lang tanggal-tanggal ang puta, di man lang nila ginalang yung segment na weigh-in. Weigh-in, ang alam ko dyan, may tanggalan dyan eh. O, may tanggalan ng damit dyan, parang formality to eh. Parang formality dapat tong ganito. Hindi siya yung putang ina. And then also, dagdag ko na din, yung face off ni Lashley, yung sinabi ni Brock dun. Sobrang nagandaan ako sa sinabi ni Brock dun. I love the promo after nung weigh-in na yun. And then, sige, let's move on to our next stuff. Yung sinabi ko ngayon sa Alpha Academy stuff. I love the Academy Challenge, man. Ewan ko, first time nyo maririnig sa akin, but it's kinda cute. Sabi ko sa inyo, wrestling, WWE is not only about wrestling. WWE is all about everything. Kahit mag-TikTok ka dyan, mapapakita pa din yan sa TV. It's that simple. Yes, it is. Kahit mag-twerk ka dyan, wala silang pake. They're going to show it on TV because it's WWE. E stands for entertainment, not excitement. Ganun kasimple. WWE is not entertainment na obviously na wrestling lang. WWE is all around. Parang all around. Pwede ka na nga. Parang kulang na lang. Maglagay sila ng school dyan. Maglagay sila ng mga school shows like that. But obviously, they're not going to do that. Maglalagay din sila ng fantasy. Because they did on Nikki ESH. Diyos ko. Dami ko sinabi. Pero sige, let's talk about the Alpha Academy Challenge. I love the academic challenge na to. I swear. Parang, alam mo yan na parang ginagamit nila yung uniqueness ng characters nila Gable at saka ni Otis, which is pretty damn good. Tapos, dagdag mo din yung RK Bro. Siyempre, RK Bro is one of the best teams in today's history ng WWE. Kaya, sobrang ganda ng balance nila for me. And so next week, mas maganda yung abangan ko next week kasi maglalaban sila na scooter race. Si Otis, imagine mo naka-scooter. Ito, no offense sa mga matataba dyan, kaya ko. Pero, I don't think kaya si Otis ng scooter. Unless may customized scooter silang ipapakita dun sa show. Which is kinda weird na... Okay, sige, let's talk about our next stuff. Finally, the last segment of the show. Kasi gusto ko i-summary itong episode na to. So, we got Miz and Maryse. The birthday celebration. So, yun nga, nagkaroon nga ng birthday party si Miz para kay Maryse. And then, in the end, inatake nila Edge and Beth Phoenix sila Miz and Maryse. Parang obviously they're going to do the almost same bullshit, but this time nag-revenge dito sila Beth and Edge. Tanungin niyo ako, anong masasabi ko sa mga ganitong BS-BS na to? I'm not a fan of this. Kasi, matches should be on last. No? Sobrang nade-degrade na lang tatlo yung show o yung cards na yan o yung tao ba dito. Mga matches na dapat, mga may deserve na matches, dapat nilalagay nila dito. Not the BS na Bet Phoenix ganito. It's kinda disappointing. But di na mag-expect it's WWE. Okay, by the way, before we move on to our first commercial break, let's talk about the Becky Lynch and Doudrop split screen stuff that they did before the main stuff. Edge and Maris. Edge and Maris. Miss and Maris. I love yung split screen nilang dalawa. Kinda di siya unusual. Di rin siya unusual for me. But the split screen segment sobrang intense. Sabi ko, hindi ko to ganong aabangan on this year's Royal Rumble. But nagkaroon na rin ako ng interest for that match. And the build, I kinda like it. No? Kasi gusto ko pa to kasi dun sa sa Edge and Miz. Kasi medyo nawala na rin yung excitement ko nung pumasok na yung mga asawa nila, which is kind of BS. But it's fine. Nandiyan na rin yan. Wala na ka rin ako magagawa. Okay. So, mamaya natin pag-uusapan yung mga predictions ko about that. So, we're going to take our first commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to do a NXT and AEW review. And then on our final second half, magkakaroon tayo ng preview for our ATD and dun din sa ating second half, gagawin natin yung predictions for the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. It's kinda long. So, sobrang haba nito, man. And for now, para makatulong kayo muna sa aking podcast before we go to our first commercial break. And since kayo naman ay nag-shop din on your platform, especially on Shopee, please support the podcast by using my link on the description below. That's podlink.co/bhx on Shopee. Again, that's podlink.co/bhx. Lalo't lapit na nga ang 2-2 na magte-take place na in almost few days na lang. 2-2 na next week. Next week na nga. So, ayun, salamat Shopee. And now, let's check our other ka-podcast here on Pipe Network.
Gusto niya bang malaman kung paano kami nakikipag-collab sa mga brands in the MT Show podcast? We use Podmetrics, the easiest way to monetize your podcast. If meron kang podcast, sign up now at podmetrics.co and use my code DMTGShowPod to get full control on how you monetize your show regarding of its size. Again, sign up now at podmetrics.co and use my code DMTGShowPod. If you're an advertiser who wants to collab with us, head on over to advertiser.podmetrics.co and fill up the form. Again, Podmetrics, the easiest way to monetize your podcast.
Hello, okay. We're back on your Unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. This is the podcast. Alright, so let's continue with our NXT 2.0 stuff. Reminders guys, medyo mag-alboroto ako on today's NXT. No? Kasi nag-rage ako sa Twitter. For real. Nag-rage ako for a reason sa Twitter account ko at AJ Penera. Sobrang naiinis ako na nagagalit na ako at the same time na why there's a peace break on NXT 2.0. Dami akong phrases on NXT 2.0 and now we're getting peace breaks. Malaking downgrade na to sa 2.0, man. And I'm kind of disappointed on that. Especially if we're going to talk about ODJ, the hip-hop star who does alam mo na yan. It's kind of stupid for me na ang hindi kasi malinaw sa akin according dun sa isang performance ni Oli J. Gumawa sila ng kanta for Oli J na gagamitin daw for NXT. So, syempre ako si Tanga. Ang inisip ko agad, papalitan nila yung down south. If they're going to change down south, parang nagda-downgrade sila and possibly the worst NXT team na maririnig nyo ever. Sobrang maiinis ako pag ganun na from being the number one brand in WWE, magiging ganito. Like, are you serious? Parang nasira na lahat ng reputation ng 2.0 o ng NXT. It doesn't matter kung ano pangalan niya o kung ano yung pangalan ng show. But it ruins the reputation of the show. And yeah, as expected, we got that. Nakuha natin yung poking ng performance ni Oli J. And it sucked. Di na ako magsasabi ng kung ano-ano, but I can say it sucked. Sorry. Ang narealize ko lang on that segment, minsan, yung mga performances, hindi yan magdadala ng excitement sa'yo. Minsan, mauumay ka pa sa mga performances na yan. And totoo naman si Oli J, yung mga nasa PHC dyan, kung nababasa niyo yung mga runs ko, sobrang naiinis ako on the part na, what? Ano to? Main event? Akala ko ano to? Opening to. And they're going to put Oli J last? Like, holy shit. Are you fucking serious on this? I'm not against the Taro change or the change of the team, so whatever kung naman naiisip ng WWE about this. But it makes sense din naman. At the same time, let's talk about the TV14 stuff since medyo mature na yung role doon ni Oli J. And it features more hip-hop stuff here in 2.0. It's kinda makes sense to me na. Pero hindi ko pa rin tanggap na si Oli J yung kakanta ng official team song ng NXT. It's kinda pissing me off na maraming magagandang kanta sa 2.0 hanggang dun sa Down South. Tapos papalitan niya lang ng ganitong kanta ni Oli J. Like, fuck. Di ko na alam kung ano pa yung sasabihin kong pangit about the stuff that they did last week. Last week. Pero sobrang pangit nun. Seriously, man. Nadidismaya ako. Kahit ipagtanong nyo, madidismaya din talaga kayo. Sobra. Sige, let's move on na. Kasi ayoko ma-piece lalo. Piece off lalo. Baka kasi ano pa yung masabi ko. Sige, let's talk about the upcoming takeover or war games. Ano? Tangina. O special event na mangyayari daw sa February 15. So, it's takeover or NXT Vengeance Day. So, it's a small show, not the usual takeover or special event. Hindi siya ganun. Ngayon, it's a USA Network show na mangyayari sa 2 hours ng USA Network. It's kind of weird, no? Kasi hindi na nila ginagamit yung USA o yung WWE Network or Peacock for their shows. Instead, they're gaming yung mga shows nila for dapat pang Peacock, binibigay na lang nila sa USA. Nilalagay nila. I don't know, it's something na kailangan nila magbawas ng pay-per-views o parang may something ba na ginagawa din nila yung ginagawang practice ng AEW na at least one pay-per-view or at least one show, special show a month. Kasi ito na yung second under the 2.0 na NXT special ng USA. And they did that. Yung Vengeance Day, nagawa din nila yung New Year's Evil. At possible pa yung takeover. Yung NXT Stand and Deliver dun sa Dallas by Saturday daw ng WrestleMania. It's kinda weird. Mamaya natin na-explain yun before we end. Okay. Bago tayo patuloy dun sa 2.0 na yan, let's talk about happenings. Happenings muna ng 2.0. So, sige. start tayo doon sa tournament. So, nagkaroon nga ng update doon sa tournament sa Dusty Cup. So, tinalo ng MSK ang Jacket Time in a match. So, magpo-proceed sila. I don't know kung sinong kalaban. Di ko natanda kung sinong kalaban. I think it's... Di ko tanda. Di ko talaga tanda. Pasensya na. And then, yung GYB, Grizzled Young Veterans, tinalo nila yung Chase U, sila Andre Chase, in a tag team match, obviously, for the Dusty Cup. And then, isa pa na gusto kong i-praise ngayong linggo. I love the Boa versus Solo Sikoa match. Sobrang nagandaan ako sa laban na to, I swear. Na parang kulang siya doon sa TV time na binigay sa kanila. Na parang, ewan ko, gusto ko magkaroon sila ng takeover o special match sa isang special event nila since may special event na nga, Vengeance Day. I wish na magkaroon sila ng isa pang match for their feud. Kasi pwede yun makatulong sa pag-elevate ng mga pangalan nila. And maganda yung chemistry nila for me. And then, proceed tayo, Broad Breaker versus Santos Escobar. Niluluto na nila tong feud for Vengeance Day, I guess. It's kinda okay lang for me since ito yung first feud ni Broad Breaker with the championship. It's fine. Sobrang fine niya lang for me. And also, speaking of 2.0, in-announce din sa the bump prior to this episode na magkakaroon siya ng tag team match versus with Tommaso Ciampa versus Legado del Fantasma. So, magsasama yung dati magkalaban. So, si Bron Breakker and si Tommaso Ciampa. And okay lang for me. Not expecting a lot from 2.0 nowadays. Di na agad nag-expect and di na rin ako magugulat why we're getting this stuff. Alright? And then, finally, we have to talk about the main event of this week's NXT 2.0. It's Tony D'Angelo versus Cameron Grimes, with the winner will face the NXT North American Champion Carmelo Hayes at Vengeance Day. Lagi nang may takeover. Nasanay na kasi ako. So, that's a pretty good match. Not bad. Not the best, not the worst. But it's kinda skeptic then for me that we're getting this kind of stuff too early. Kasi parang they're building up the parating na pay-per-view really fast. Kaya ganito yung nagiging pace nila sa feuds. Sobrang nababasurahan lang ako. And ang pangit lang ng dating sa akin nun. And si Cameron Grimes winning the match is okay. He deserves the win. He deserves a one-on-one title match. But not definitely for the NXT Championship. Because hindi pa niya deserve yan ngayon. No. Pero, sabihin ko sa inyo, hindi mananalo si Grimes dito. Linawin ko sa inyo, ha? Baka ang manalo pa dyan, si Melo pa din. Siyempre, si Carmelo Hayes pa din ang mananalo dito sa match na to. With or without Trick Williams. Carmelo mananalo dito, for sure. And then, sige. Tapos na tayo sa NXT. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite Winter Break or Beach Break. Kung ano man katarantaduan nila. Okay, let's talk about Beach Break. So, mag-umpisa tayo dun sa ladder match between Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. The match, personally, di ko napanood to nung una. But pinanood ko yung replay. I'm so fucking impressed on AEW sa mga ladder matches nila. And dito, yung mga best ladder matches, di sila gumagawa ng best ladder matches. But I think na-deliver sila ngayon. Sobrang ganda na na-deliver nila Cody dito at ni Sammy. And ang big question mark lang sa akin about this story ni Sammy na nanalo nga ng TNT is paano siya makakatulong doon sa problema ng Inner Circle. Hindi na rin siya nakakasama sa members ng IC. Kaya medyo it's kinda confusing for me na parang member pa ba si Sammy Guevara ng Inner Circle? Sobrang nako-confuse ako doon. And di na rin siya na-mention na member ng IC. Kaya sobrang skeptic niya for me. Si Jake Hager, di ko rin nakikita sa TV. Kaya, kaya napapatanong din ako. Member pa ba sila ng IC? O may IC pa ba? O di lang sila nagagamit sa TV because they suck. Okay, sige. Let's move on to the next segment. So, we got Lance Archer versus Adam Page for the AEW Championship. Na-official na siya for next 2 weeks doon sa Atlantic City. And yun ay yung Texas Death Match. Kinonfirm na rin siya earlier sa AEW Dynamite prior to recording. And para sa akin naman, yung match na to, not the first feud for Adam Page. But okay, sige, give him a chance si Archer. Pero wala naman ako nakikitang butas para matalo si Adam Page dito. Regardless on what the hell or kung sino man yung talent na yun. No? Then, let's proceed to the CM Punk versus MJF since na-announce na siya for next Wednesday sa Dynamite. Ano masasabi ko? I think this is the best CM Punk MJF confrontation yet. Siguro hindi ito yung last. Hindi rin ito yung match. Definitely the first match ever. But mukhang hindi siya dun lang eh. Hindi dun lang. Imposibleng dun lang sa feud na yun. O sa match na yun. Imposibleng dun lang yun. And then, masusundan pa siya probably sa pay-per-view. Kaya parang papahabayan pa nila yung build-up ng pay-per-view. Since meron pa silang almost 8 weeks o 9 weeks before the pay-per-view. 8 weeks, sobra naman. I think it's 5-6 weeks before the pay-per-view. And I think the slow build on this match is hindi na appropriate for a pay-per-view. Kaya, yeah. Ayun, sige, let's talk about the main event for this week's Dynamite Beach Break. It's Adam Cole versus Orange Cassidy. I'm going to say this before, sabi ko na siya sa Twitter, I'm going to say this again. This is one of the dumbest matches this year in AEW. No doubt about it. Not saying na talo si OC. It's because sobrang pointless na lang for me. Nagsakitan kayo dyan para kayong tanga. Tapos, di nyo ibibilang sa record. So technically, Adam Cole is still undefeated. Parang butas lang talaga yung stipulation na holds barred ng sanctioned lights out. Parang excuse lang talaga siya para Parang excuse lang talaga siya para hindi matalo si Adam Cole. And technically, Adam Cole is still undefeated in AEW. Ganun lang yun eh. Sobrang basura lang talaga no match. Match is okay. Okay, it's fine. That's a typical Adam Cole match with unexpected ending. It's okay. Pero yung steep, sobrang bulok. Mas bulok pa sa bulok. Mas bulok pa sa ibang scenario last year sa WWE. Ito bulok talaga to. Wala na akong masasabing iba. Sobrang bulok na to. Okay. We're done with NXT and AEW. Now, we're going to talk about our Royal Rumble predictions since this is our first Royal Rumble pay-per-view or review in a while. We're going to do a preview for the Royal Rumble on our ATD the podcast later on the show, or baka i-exclusive ko na lang sa Spotify the next view. Baka tomorrow, pagsipag ako tomorrow. Okay, sige. So for now, let's check our other ka-podcast here on Pipe Network.
You are listening to the MTG Show podcast, an unfiltered Tagalog wrestling podcast where they talk about anything and everything about professional wrestling. Speaking of professional, we are professionally going to segue to our own show, Rule 20 Podcast, where the only professional thing we do are done mostly off the record, behind the cam, and under the sheets. Again, that's Rule 20, available wherever you are listening to this right now. And now back to the podcast.
Dear listener, Have you ever had a complicated situation with someone you love? I'm not a relationship expert, but I sure have gone through a handful of ups and downs with my own relationships. So I invite you to join in the conversation in my podcast, Sincerely Yours, where we'll talk about the discreet things we do in relationships that harm us. Some may be hard to admit to ourselves, but that's the road to building healthy relationships. I hope to see you there. Sincerely yours, Maria.
Okay, we're back on the podcast. So before we continue, let's plug our Lazada link. Kasi lahat ng bagay na pwede niyong bilhin ay nasa Lazada yan. If you want to support the podcast, visit our link on the description below, podlink.co/6gs. Again, that's podlink.co/6gs. 6gs. And you can support the podcast without extra cost. And yun, makakatulong kayo sa akin. And lahat ng bagay ay nasa Lazada yan. So yeah, Lazada. Okay, let's continue with our stuff for this week's podcast. So we're going to talk about my predictions for this year's Royal Rumble. So it's a six card matches. 6 matches yung mangyayari this year sa Royal Rumble. And obviously 1 hour, 2 hours is for the Royal Rumble, and then the rest is for the 4 matches. Pag malagay natin magiging 4-hour show to. Possible maging 4-hour show to, plus may kick-off pa. Baka mag-announce din sila ng kick-off match, and it's fine. Okay lang. So, let's start the match cards with our 4 matches muna, yung 4 mo ng matches. So, umpisahan natin sa isa sa mga world title matches. So, it's Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley for the first time ever for the WWE Championship. Naiisip ko ba na possible matalo si Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar is the biggest son of a bitch right now. And if Brock loses the Lashley, it's kind of makes sense to me. May sense siya for me. But, let me say this. Ito yung first defense ni Brock. Of course, hindi siya matatalo agad. And, di naman makakabawas sa credibility ni Lashley pag natalo siya kay Brock. Malaking karangalan pa sa kanya yun. Diba? Sobrang ganda na daw. Ang asahan ko lang dito is gonna be a big fight. For sure. And, hindi ito yung basta-bastang iismulin yung feud na nakikita nyo na before. So, my prediction for this match for the WWE title, I think Brock will retain, but I want Lashley to win. Reality, si Brock ang mananalo. Retain yan. Alright? And then, let's move on to our Universal Championship match. It's Roman Reigns, the champion, versus Seth freaking Rollins for the Universal Heavyweight Championship. Okay, say whatever you want. Maraming rumors dyan. Pagilid-gilid about Seth Rollins winning the match. But for me, like what I said earlier, I don't think Seth will win the title. Alright? I don't think Seth will win. Parang, it doesn't make sense na if darating tayo sa punto na we're going to get niya yung unification o yung winner take all, imposible pala yung unification, winner take all is positive. Since doon din sila tutungo, why? So, bakit di pa natin susulitin na gano'n yung gawin natin for Brock and Roman, di ba? So, malamang sa malamang, magmamajority Roman ako dito. Roman Reigns will win the WWE Universal title match versus Seth Rollins. Okay, let's move on to Becky Lynch and Doudrop in a one-on-one match for the Raw Women's Championship. Sobrang na-excite ako dito. Not only, hindi, ito yung unang match na ayaw ko panoorin nun. Binibuild pa lang siya. But, as per this week's episode of Pro, sobrang na-excite ako on this thing. Syempre, sobrang unpredictable itong stuff na to. parang hindi mo pwedeng alisin sa fact na, man, this is the best Becky Lynch right now. This is the best Doudrop right now. And no doubt, if isa sa kanila yung mananalo, it's win-win situation pa din, di ba? So I think I can say si Doudrop magka-champion yan anytime this year. But not definitely against Becky Lynch. That's the simplest argument that I'm going to say today. And then finally, dun sa ating mga filler matches before we go to our third commercial break, it's Edge and Beth Phoenix, both Hall of Famers, versus Miz and Maryse in a mixed tag team match. Si Seth, si Edge, I don't think na makakabawas sa credibility niya pagkatalo siya kay Miz. And syempre, if they are going to extend this feud until WrestleMania, Edge winning this tag match and Maryse would make sense if they're going to do that. Pag hindi, I don't think na magtutuloy-tuloy pa yun. If patatalo kasi sila Edge and Maryse, para makakabawas na yun sa momentum nila and baka mag-back to square na ulit yung dalawa. It's kinda sad pag ganun. Kaya, my prediction for that one is I can say it's Edge and Maryse winning the match. Kahit upset, kahit yan ay DQ, okay lang as long as they're going to win the match. Alright? On our second half, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the men's and the women's Royal Rumbles plus our preview for ATD, the podcast na dapat nyo din pakinggan after a short message from our other ka-podcast here on Pipe Network.
Mainit na diskusyonan,
Masarap na kwentuhan,
malinamnam na usapan,
at nakakagising na balitaktakan.
parang kape lang. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Waya Angeline.
Join us in our conversations at Coffee na Lang Dear Podcast.
I like to have a good time when I listen to my horror podcast.
Her left arm
Oh,
was
that's
chopped
so.
off.
Oh my god, really?
Caused a panic all over the
Prolonged
country.
their deaths for like months and
The
months.
frightening, alarming, real-life tales show is my horror podcast. My horror podcast. That's
Okay,
it?
Pause it.
This is your scary part? Be scared and laugh hard with the frightening, alarming, real-life tales show every Friday on all major podcasting platforms. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Okay, we're back on the second half of our predictions here on the podcast. So, sige, let's talk about now the Women's Royal Rumble. As of this moment, meron na tayong 21 entries for the Women's Royal Rumble. So, it's time to predict na, no? Let's start with the possible runner-ups. Alright? May possible runner-ups to. Yes, there's always a possible runner-ups for this year's women's side is not different. Okay, so runner-ups muna. Mag-umpisa tayo sa runner-up. Possible dyan si Liv, obviously. Liv Morgan. And then, if we're going to talk about the runner-ups, pwede rin si Rhea Ripley. Pwede rin si Nikki. O sino pang iba dyan. Or even, pwede rin si Shayna Baszler. O pag si Ronda Rousey, tapos na ang kwento, according kasi sa mga bali-balita, si Ronda, baka mag-return sa Royal Rumble pay-per-view na pinupul ng WWE. They're pulling the strings for a Ronda comeback. I don't know if confirmed na siya or mako-confirm na siya probably by this year. Pero yun ang ginagawa nila right now. They're pulling the strings for a Ronda Rousey comeback. And then finally, yung aking pang-apat, I think it's Bianca. Bianca Belair na pwede ko din gawing two-time na Royal Rumble winner. If mananalo siya, baka siya yung maging unang winner with two Rumble winners. Back to back pa, no? Pero ang totoo diyan, ang prediction ko sa winners, bago pala ako mag-winners, let's talk about the possible Iron Woman for this match. I think it's Bianca or Charlotte. Bianca Belair or Charlotte. Si Charlotte kasi champion, syempre. Baka mag-enter yan ng una. And then, mag-rush yan sa ibang talents. And then, kung sino yung makakatanggal kay Charlotte, yun yung makakalaban niya sa WrestleMania. Especially, if si Lita yun, that's her opportunity to eliminate Charlotte. So, ganun lang. Diba? Okay, let's move on to our men's side of things. Meron tayong 22 participants for this year's Royal Rumble, so there's 8 slots pa. I think, it's huge. Sobrang huge. Sobrang huge niya for me. Sobrang laki nitong opportunity for WWE na may Forbidden Door, may Impact Forbidden Door, and every opportunity, parang gusto nilang ibigay sa mga talents nila, but they don't know if they're going to accept the challenge or they're going to accept the offer ng government sa US. Ba? So, if balik tayo sa ating Women's Royal Rumble, if may top 4 ako, I can say it's AJ Styles, si Big E, pwede din isang part-timer but I'm not sure who the fuck he is. Malabo naman si Jackass. Definitely malabo talaga yun. Hiniupak na yun. Pwede rin si Roman. Pwede rin si Lashley. O kahit sino sa dalawang champion if matatalo sila. It's good. But my winner Royal Rumble, I think it's AJ Styles or Big E. But mas maganda ko SmackDown naman nanalo. No, mas maganda ako pang SmackDown for this year's Royal Rumble. So, that's it for my predictions for this year's Royal Rumble. And, sige, mag-preview na lang ako real quick. I don't think i-upload ko pa sa ATD na podcast. Sige, umpisa tayo sa ating preview. Alright? Okay. Ang punto ko, ito wait lang, galis na ako mic. This year's Royal Rumble is the first Royal Rumble with crowd since the 2020 pandemic. And sobrang saya ko kasi for the first time in 2 years, there's a crowd. No? There's a crowd for the Women's Royal Rumble. Imagine mo yung crowd na mag-cheer sa kung sino man yung winner for this year's Royal Rumble. Sobrang exciting ako. Sobrang excited ako sa mga possible mangyari and sa mga posibleng mangyari on this thing. Na. And then, naglo-look forward din ako sa mga stuff na pwede nating asahan within this year or within the countdown to WrestleMania, sa mga susunod na pay-per-views pa, lalo na yung Saudi na dapat din nating abangan. And, isa lang naman na masasabi ko, it's really simple. Kung bibigyan kayo ng opportunity, give them opportunities. Huwag yung sayangin ng opportunity. Kung draw yung talent, give them some respect and give them opportunities. Alright? Okay. So, bago nga pala maiwan at baka makalimutan ko, yung prediction ko for the Women's Royal Rumble is Liv Morgan, Lacey Evans for a comeback, and then I can consider Sasha and Shayna Baszler. Pwede rin Rhea Ripley actually, but 50-50 ako. And then ano pa ba? Yung Edge and Maryse mixed tag match. Edge miss, ganun. Basta tama. I think I can say it's Edge and Maryse, no? Edge and Beth Phoenix. But in reality, parang na-feel ko na baka manalo pa ang Miz and Maryse dito. Just to extend the feud until WrestleMania. Diba? Ganun lang. Okay. Yan na yan. That's my predictions for this year's Royal Rumble. Let me know your predictions for this year's Royal Rumble on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at the MTG Show Pod. So it's time to wrap this thing up. So if you're listening for the podcast every week on Spotify, please rate the podcast 5 stars or 6 on Spotify app. Mag-update muna kayo ng Spotify app bago kayo makapag-rate here in the podcast. And then follow the podcast on all of the social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, and etc. So forth and so forth. Follow the podcast on all of that social media platforms for some stuff na ina-up natin, the pay-per-views. Ano? And then, of course, please support Pipe Network. Pipe Network, lalo na yung aming Tao Ba To game namin na dapat yung abangan for the next few weeks, and sa mga gusto sumali sa aming ano ba to na segment na to, please check Pipe Network's Facebook page for more details. And yun. So, my social media platforms, follow me on Twitter, Instagram at AG Penera. So, yeah, that's it for this week's pod. Stay safe, stay reso, register to vote. See you on May. Gusto ko sana mag-decide na kayo. Please decide for your decisions for May 2022 and double max up. And if gusto niyo mo pa-vaccine o pwede na kayo pa-vaccine kung qualified na kayo sa vaccination, well, magpa-vaccine na po kayo as soon as possible. Magpa-booster if you can. And stay safe, stay raso. See you next week for our fallout for the Royal Rumble. Yeah, peace out.
Did you know that podcasts are the new radio? You can listen to your favorite shows anytime, anywhere on demand. Visit the Pilipinas Indie Podcast and Entertainment Network at pipenetwork.co to see our list of shows. And like us on Facebook to get updates on our latest episodes, events, promos, and freebies. The Pipe Network, taking podcasting to the next level.